ASMR.
Yeah, we get the ASMR going.
Let's crunch some chips.
Hello and welcome to Room 420, guys. I am Gary Miller. I am joined by my guest today, Tyler Hunt. He's a filmmaker, actor, all-around extraordinaire. We get a lot of cool people on this show. Real excited to have you, bud. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is an honor. I'm very thankful to be here.
We've been kind of talking before we got on the podcast, just trying to get him. He's from Colorado Springs, so like getting to Denver, I had to apologize.
From Jersey.
Live
in Colorado Springs. Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
You gotta check my shit.
Good old Jersey boy. Yeah, no.
When I say something stupid, just check me on it, dude.
No, you're good, man.
So what was it like growing up in Jersey?
You know what? Whenever you say New Jersey, people think of, this is the first thing everybody says.
Yeah.
I say I'm from New Jersey, and they say, oh, Joyzy, huh? Or they do like the accent on me, like they think it's funny. I lived there for 19 years, and I don't know a single person that talks like that. Nobody, not a single person. So Jersey's divided. I don't know if this camera's... Yeah. It's divided between north and south.
Okay.
South is like suburban and rural.
Okay.
So you drive 20 minutes from where I grew up, and it's literally corn and like cow crossings. It's so different. So like we're closer to Philly than New York City.
Okay.
But how was it? I grew up in a small town, 12,000 people, and I'm not ever moving back within a 500-mile radius. I love my family. I love my brother and my mom and dad, but I just can't, man. So I've been out here almost 7 years.
Okay.
I kind of bounced around out east a little bit. Lived in PA for a little bit, Virginia, and I've been out here about 7 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, we got some people from Pennsylvania and Philly in the office too. A lot of Flyers fans.
Okay.
Stuff. Yep.
Yeah. You know what? Like East Coast, you're a little more aggressive, a little more forward, especially with driving.
Yeah.
I'm not a good person when I drive. I'm not, man.
So, I don't think anybody is, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like you get that armored car around you. And
dude, I'm like one of those ride the bumper. If you don't get out of like the left lane, I'm gonna I'll just kiss your bumper a little bit. Just get out of my way. I'm driving faster than you. Anyway. Yeah.
I gotta ask this too. Do you feel like The Sopranos kind of hurt that reputation for Jersey a little bit?
No, you know what hurt the reputation? Sure, but like Jersey Shore too. Yeah. That's the other one I get all the time. Jersey Shore. Yeah. You're like Pauly D and all.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know Snooki. I don't know these people. Like I would go to Jersey Shore, the Ocean City, growing up, like a vacation.
Uh-huh.
But it's just normal people.
Yeah.
It's not until you get up to like New York City that's when you really start getting that like city culture and different accents and all kind of stuff. But yeah, man, little suburban white people, middle class town. That's all I grew up in. So thankful to not be there anymore.
What brought you out here?
Yeah, so I came out. Like I said, I bounced around a little bit. Went to college in PA. Studied ministry actually. Then I started doing theater as like a minor. And so that's like, if you want like the ticket to success, just get like a minor in theater. Just people will be beating down your doors, man. Just like want to hire you for everything. But that's where I found acting, and I loved acting. And then I moved down to Fairfax, Virginia. There's a story that goes behind, but I worked at a church for a little bit. And when I was there, I was like, the position just wasn't right for me. It didn't change my faith or anything, but it was more so like the responsibilities that I had. So I started doing other stuff on the side. I found video. I made just complete garbage videos. Then my friends were like, come on, man, like show us and all. I'm like, no, it's not even like best friend approved. You know what I mean? Like, it's so bad, man. But I really loved it, and I was like, man, like, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be here or whatever. And then for me, I kind of let go, and it wasn't my faith or anything that changed. It was just that I wanted to do something different. So I went to film school in Virginia Beach. I won't say the film school because I didn't really learn anything. But when I was there, I started acting, and I got involved behind the camera, started doing film and stuff, and just loved it. Just absolutely adored it. And was there about a year. Sorry, I'm giving you like the long answer to your question.
No, take your time.
Yeah, so I was there about a year. I was really anal about my grades in undergrad. I was like, I got to get a 4.0. But in grad school, I was like, I just want to know if I have a skill that I can like make a living doing something. So I was only there a year. It was like a 1-year MA program. And then my last semester, I was like, because I was in 3 semesters, I took it. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. So I texted all my friends looking for a wedding to shoot, like just any kind of wedding, just to start to like make money. So I don't recommend this, but I bought all my gear on credit cards, bought a laptop. I was just like, I'm like full send, man. I don't play around. So then I filmed my first wedding back in Fairfax for free. It's so awful. I had them share like the wedding video like years after I made it when I was actually like a professional.
Yeah.
I like untagged myself. I was just like, God, I was like, this is so bad. Please don't associate my name with this. But they were happy because it was free. And then my second wedding I actually drove from Virginia Beach up to Utica, New York, which is like a 9-hour drive. And I got paid $300 to shoot this wedding, which is like barely covers gas, But I shoot it, and I meet some random dude there, and he gives me his business card. And in the world of freelancing business cards, I'm like, whatever, man. Like, they like 5% of the time it actually amounts to something. Yeah. But like after I crank out the wedding and then some other thing, this guy's like, hey, can you shoot this event for me? So I shoot the event, turn it out. He saw the wedding video I did, saw the event video. This organization was like 6-7 people at the time. And he's like super entrepreneurial, and he's like, why don't you come like work for us? I hear. And I was like, dude, I didn't want a full-time job. I feel like every artist doesn't want a full-time job. It's like you just struggle with like, you can't, like, don't want to be held down. So I was in Atlanta at the time, and I was going to do like, I had a small agent. I was going to do acting and freelance film and stuff. But it was like, I was like less than a year into being a videographer. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just stupid. And this guy was offering me a position to like handle all the video production, even though they were small, have like complete creative freedom over like just doing video for this organization. And so, about 6.5 years ago, I just was like, I was in Atlanta. I was like, what am I doing, man? So it was like not necessarily an opportunity I thought or would have expected, but like a lot of this industry is just like saying yes. So I just said yes about 6.5 years ago, worked for them full time for about 2.5 years, doing all their video production, was in front, not only working for them, but then like getting out in the community, getting connected with other actors, and just spent like the 2.5 years acting, making movies, making films on the side, getting connections. And then about 4 years ago, I branched out to just do my own business. So now I'm a freelance videographer, cinematographer, however you want to put it. And then on this side, make movies. So sorry, that was the long answer.
So this is the time to do the long story. When people are like, long story short, I'm like, no, make that short story long.
Make it long, okay.
So I'm curious too, like when you transitioned from like undergrad to grad school, and you were talking about like I was really anal. Was there like kind of a moment where you're like, man, what am I doing there too?
Yeah, when I got in grad school, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, because some of the things that we would do, so there's this guy, I won't say his name. His name was Andrew, that's all I'll say. The entire class was just like analyzing films and writing about them, right? Which is like, you can make up the most BS answers to any movie. It's like when the door opened and the light came through, it meant that there was hope for him and that he was going to go to heaven, or you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like literally the filmmaker just had him open the door. Like that was it. We had to like write papers about like movies that you'd watch. Yeah. So it just feels like super pretentious film school BS that's like doesn't really amount to much. Yeah. And this guy, Andrew, was like, gotta be in his 80s. He would always fall asleep in class. So it's like we're watching some dumb movie we gotta write a paper about. I look over, he's like snoring. And this is grad school. Yeah. I'm like paying through I'm paying so much money to be here. And it was stuff like that. I remember I was like what is happening? Why is this like, this is so dumb. I'm not learning anything. You know what I mean? So that was what kind of motivated me to do stuff on the side on my own. But yeah, I went through that moment. I was like, this time I'm like, why would I get good grades, if I'm like one of these main professors just like sleeping in this dumb class, So I definitely had those moments. It was what motivated later for me to go do it on my own outside of it. So yeah.
So that like when you were making your first films, like what camera were you using too?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man. Okay. So, my first things when I was at that church, I shot on a Canon Vixia HFS 20. It only did 720p. Looks so bad. This is gonna sound so dumb. Yeah. I don't know what the audience is gonna think. One of my first videos, I have no idea. I'm 23. I'm 23-year-old. And I made this video. Like I got in front of like the pulpit, and it was like, this is so dumb. I don't know what you're gonna think of me. I got in front of the pulpit and would scream random things. Like I was screaming it to like the church, the audience. Yeah. And I would just like scream anything. Yeah. Like just like I would say like salmonella or whatever. This makes no sense. I mean, scream it so it would echo through the whole church. Yeah. And I filmed it from like 10 different angles. And then later filmed like people in the audience as if they were like
listening to it.
They had to listen to this like sermon of me just screaming random things. Yeah. And I don't know why, but I thought it was like the funniest thing. Yeah. I'm 23. Yeah. And I just like, you would think you'd make that when you're like 8.
I still think that's funny.
Yeah. I show some friends and they're either like all about it or they're like, I don't know what is going on with you, man. Yeah. But I remember editing it and just like, I'm sitting there by myself just cracking up thinking this is hilarious. But oh my god, it was so dumb. It was so dumb. So that was my first like encounter with video. It was like just a camcorder, not even a DSLR, camcorder with iMovie. And then from there, I moved up to, and I don't know how technical the audience is going to know, but it was a Canon 60D. I shot this, we had to shoot a short film, which is actually helpful in grad school. Had to shoot a short film. And I remember I shot this thing I didn't know what I was doing. I remember I filmed this this short film, no idea what I was doing. I can't even describe the level of like trash that it was. Like it was even worse than screaming things because at least that was funny. There were like sandbags in the shot, lights. I didn't know what I was doing. It was god awful. And I remember it was like 2 weeks away from the film being due. I remember it was like midnight or something one time, and I like called my mom. And I'm like, why am I in film school? What have I done with my life? Oh my god, this is so stupid of me. And so. But then I was like, all right, I gotta fix this. So then I went to my friend. His name's Justice Hardy. We're still friends. Shout out to Justice if he is listening to this. He's the man. He's such a great guy. But I met him and I borrowed his camera, and I literally reshot the whole film.
Okay.
But the funny thing is I was the main character.
Yeah.
So I was literally setting up the tripod, hitting record, and I had a stupid little Zoom recorder thing, boomed. And I basically filmed myself, reshot, and then those other characters, I had like somebody help me for like 20% of it. Reshot the whole thing, and I was like, I actually got like an A. So I was like, it was a crash course on learning like how like cameras work.
Yeah.
So that was like the second camera that I shot with, this Canon 60D. That's where I started to learn like the basics of cinematography and everything. And then after that, when I upgraded, it was to a GH4, and that's when I started to do like more like professional type stuff for clients. So yeah, I got a weird beginnings with video, but everybody does, I think. So.
Do you think like the technology has kind of helped you experiment more with like my cinematography, kind of lighting and stuff? Because I kind of think about there's two things while you were talking that I think that idea every artist is like, man, what am I doing with my life? Because I think Stan Lee had that same moment. He's like, all my friends are building bridges and doing all this stuff, and I'm drawing comic books. And the other, I think of that Always Sunny pilot when they're like, hey, you guys just need lighting. And they're like, what's lighting?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like, was there a moment where you're like, oh, like light bulb, that could have saved me so much time? Or was there any moment like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So starting off with the camcorder, there's the people might like disagree about this, might get upset about it, but like shooting with a camcorder, it's like there's some technical things. There's not really depth of field, so you don't get that like blurry background effect because like you don't have like the right aperture and lens and everything. And so you shoot things and it looks like video. And plus I didn't know that like with like cinema it's 24 frames a second, not 30 or 60 frames a second. So it's like the camera's filming naturally on 30 or 60, so it looks very video-esque. And if anybody doesn't know, like the 24 versus 60, you should YouTube it. Like that's why soap operas and stuff look super hyper realistic and weird. Yeah. Because the frame rate is different. Yeah. So for me, jumping from that to like the 60D DSLRs, I had like a 50 millimeter lens. It like actually had like a way better like resolution, and it looked more cinematic. And that cinematic look really encourages you to feel like I could like this is like a movie. So I think people all the time are just like, just go film, doesn't matter, use your iPhone, da 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 da. And I think that's valid, but there is something very encouraging that when you shoot something, it actually looks like a movie. Yeah. And that actually is what like pushed me further into it. I was like, man, I can like actually make stuff look like a movie, Even though it was just a 60D at the time, it's hard to describe the difference in the look between just like a video-esque video versus like, getting shallow depth of field in shots and having more cinematic movement, motion, and blah, blah, blah. So the technology, even though it's like, yes, making content is more important, but it's so easy to make stuff look good today that I'm like getting a better camera setup, whatever, and having it actually look like a movie, it does make you feel like you're a filmmaker. Like, oh my gosh, I'm making something like significant versus just like something just looks, I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? So does it make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I'm curious too. Was there a moment too where you're like, oh, I need more than the camera? Or was it like, oh, the sound? I think that was one forever. It was like, oh, audio.
Yeah.
That didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to film, but.
Yeah, so the first film that I made put me through the gauntlet. I learned a lot. But then when after I shot like my first 2 weddings. No, my first wedding actually. I just went like balls to the wall, man. And I bought a camera, like I bought a GH4, like a 24-70 lens. I bought like lavs, boom. I just started just buying everything, like the full like production kind of thing, everything. And I bought this like super like souped up laptop. Just like realized I don't know why, but I think maybe that first movie or whatever. Just like the big thing about film school isn't really the classes, unless you're like at some major film school in California. Even then, whatever. But I think that for me, it was like you're around other filmmakers, so there's like a community, so you can learn from them.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of the benefits of film school. It's really not, it has nothing to do with the degree. It's like the people that you're around and the chance to like actually make stuff. So I think it was the combination of people that I'm around, but then also just like that hands-on experience of seeing what worked and didn't work from that like god-awful first short film I shot. So yeah, after that I just went like all out and bought like as much professional stuff as I could. And was just like, all right, I'm all in. Like let's do it, man.
Yeah, that idea, like burn the ships, just go.
Oh, dude, yeah. I was just like, burn them, man. We're just gonna go for it. So it's just okay. I don't know if we're gonna get into the movie later, but like credit cards have helped me a lot with filmmaking. I don't recommend that. Don't do that. But like if you're serious, like you can pay them off. I was always like, you can make more money, but like you can't sometimes make more opportunities when it's like in your face. So that's always been my mentality where I'm just like, just go for it, man. But don't get in debt, even though I have. Just don't listen to me.
Let it rip.
Yeah, just go for it. Yeah. But I don't know, be responsible at the same time. But I don't know.
I think that's interesting too. You bring that up because it's like you have this idea of school, going to school and doing it and putting yourself in debt for that, versus going out and doing it as a business and putting yourself in debt for that, which I think both are risky, but I think you're taking a bet on yourself, and that's pretty sweet. So, I mean, which kind of segues into our next thing. I'd love to talk about Who Needs You.
Yeah.
So your new film. So you guys were just in LA, been to a couple film festivals. Yeah. Kind of want to give you your flowers on that. It looks awesome just seeing the trailer.
Thanks, man.
Love to catch it. As a fan, like when are you expected to come out? Are you guys just waiting distribution or?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not able to say the company or I think the release date, but we have signed a distribution deal. Okay. And there's so many. Okay, I thought that like you just like, oh, I made a movie, then I sell to this company, and then they just give me tons of money or whatever. Well, actually, I didn't think that. I knew I was gonna lose. I knew I was gonna lose money the first day that I shot this thing, but I thought you would just like sell it to a company, and then like they just handled everything. But the distribution company actually needs a lot of like assets. So they need like an extremely high quality version of the film, which I don't know, like technical. Like it's like a ProRes MOV file that's like 650 gig, just the movie is. And I got to send that to a quality control company, and they go over like if there's any like dead pixels or graininess or audio that's off or whatever it is. So we got to send it to that. I have to get E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance, I think is what it's called. That way, if there's like a Dr. Pepper logo and we didn't see it, and they for whatever reason want to come after me, because I'm so big time, you know what I mean? Yep. Like, oh, this guy went to film school at a small Christian college, but I'm like, if anybody comes after us, we're liable up to a certain amount of money, but then like up to like I think it's like 2 or 3 million, we're like covered. Yeah. So I got to buy that. Yeah. What was your original question?
No, I just like about the I guess the process. We'll talk about. There's so much to it.
You say something, so my brain's just like the distribution. Distribution. That's right. We do have a release date set, but I'm currently in the process of trying to get all the assets in that I can, which just involves a lot. Yeah. Like there's something called a metadata sheet that I'm like, we shot this thing like I forget how long ago. I'm tired, man. This film has been my life for 2.5 years. Now these guys are asking for metadata. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm a creative man. I'm like, what the hell? Metadata? So I'm like filling out this stuff, and it's like asking me certain things. I'm like, well, I don't know, whatever. I'm just like typing this stuff. But stuff like that, I got to get a contract, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, we do a release date as long as I stay on schedule with getting this material to them on time, which I will. But we are waiting. We have to wait to announce when it's coming out. But I'm excited. It's coming out soon. Yeah. So, yeah.
So I want people to kind of know, so just in layman terms, he is essentially like if it was a chef, you've like killed the animal, brought it to the kitchen, cooked it yourself, seasoned it, and now you're bringing it to the table a little bit too. You're doing pretty much everything with it, which is a pretty amazing process. So, guys, check that out when you get a chance. That's with Megan Kelly and you as the leads.
Yeah.
Megan, she's been in a bunch of stuff, Interrogation and Netflix. She's the hostage all the time, it seems like.
Hey, I'd take it. Yeah, if I'm in a Netflix film, I'll be whatever you want. Yeah, be a dead body on the floor.
Oh, that's the funnest thing.
That's my goal, dude.
Yeah,
just be a dead body number 6.
It's the best.
Yeah, I wish, man. Yeah.
Just tell it from experience.
As long as I'm just like super gnarly, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah,
anyway.
like something like that. Have you ever, like, what would be like a dream role for you? Do you think?
That's a great question. Yeah. You know, honestly, this is gonna sound like kind of weird. I feel like my first experiences with film brought me down to the reality really quick, and made me. I remember when I was 18, I used to think about like I wasn't one of those people that thought about film from like when they were 6. Mm-hmm. I had like ideas, like creative ideas, like my whole life, and I'd write stuff down. I remember I had this like whole sci-fi fantasy crazy thing that when you think about it, probably take like $200 million to make. You know what I mean? But after my first film, I became very practical in my imagination and was like, what can I actually like do? You know what I mean? Like, what can I actually like pull off versus like, you know, just the sky's the limit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So get back to your question. What was it again?
Oh, man.
I keep like blanking. I keep rabbit trail. I'm sorry.
I forget the questions.
Dang it, I'm just gonna keep rolling.
Well, I love the story.
Ideal role. Man, I suck, man. I just like, I got bipolar and probably ADD and I'm on medications and I'm just like, I'm good though. I wish I was kidding. So ideal, really, ideal role for me. All that to say, like with this film, Who Needs You, my goal was literally just to like not overthink anything and just try to bring as much of myself to the role as possible. And I think, this is my personal opinion, a lot of actors are like, I wanna be the character, I wanna be an actor, you know, and they'll start like, he has a limp on his right hip because 5 years ago he was in the war and all this stuff that like, they start doing it and you're like, I don't believe this. Like, you're trying too hard. And so for me, I was like, but this character's name is Steven. My middle name is Steven. Mm-hmm. So I was just like totally, you know, I had some people be like, you're literally just you. Yeah. And I was like, I mean, come on, it's still hard, okay? I was still acting. But all that to say, I would be fine building a career playing, here's how I look at it, versions of myself where I'm bringing as much energy and whatever to the film as possible, like as me, and maybe I kind of lean in a certain direction, right? Like if I'm a bad guy, I still bring like I'm kind of loud, I'm energetic. Maybe I still bring that to the role, but I kind of lean toward being a little more like, I don't know, conniving, whatever it might be. And the funny thing is, I think that like there's like true character actors, like Daniel Day-Lewis. I hate saying was. I hope he, you know, I know you're retired. I hope he comes back. But he's like a true character actor. Like you don't recognize him in roles, you know? Which is funny because you would consider somebody like DiCaprio being like a character actor, but he still is always DiCaprio. Like he's still recognizable as like, it's not to, like he's one of the greatest of our generation. Okay, so like be whoever you want, keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure you're listening to this, Leo. But it's like for me, he's still Leo. He always has like these really intense moments where he's like freaking out. I could go over all the films. He talks really articulate or whatever. There's like these mannerisms that he brings to every film. Like Robert Downey Jr. does too, you know? I could go down the list of people. Like you think about someone like, you know, I don't want to say back in the day, but a little bit like Christopher Walken, who just is known for how he talks. I'm not going to do an impression right now. It'd be so shitty.
Dude, I think what's interesting with him too is like growing up with, you know, immigrant family and learning to speak that way, you know?
Yeah.
And just keeping what you're doing. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think it's, you don't know essentially who you are sometimes until you're put in a certain situation. I think that's kind of where I'm gathering, like with the acting, it's like pursuing a certain thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not a bad guy, but if I was in this situation, I might be.
Great way to look at it. I told without belaboring the point, I told every actor in the film, I was like, I like you and your personality and how we talk. So when it comes to this role that I'm offering, I just want you to be you. Don't try to be a character. And the most difficulty I had directing certain actors were the ones that overthought the character. You know, like what color shoes they wear, and I'm like, I don't know, and I don't care. Like make them up. You know, he, she, they wear blue Skechers. You know, does that make you feel better? So for me, it was all about like, I'm bringing you on board because of what you bring. And same with Megan. We already 10 years apart. We already have the same dumb sense of humor. Yeah. And it's just, I feel like it worked because we're just bringing that dynamic to the camera. So it wasn't like trying to be who's Steven and who's Sarah. It was like, Megan, just be Megan.
Just natural chemistry came through.
That's how I approached it, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's awesome. I feel like sometimes that actors, like I've had people call me at 3 a.m. and be like, what kind of knife do you think I should have? And I have the same reaction. I'm like, I don't care. What do you think you should have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just turn it back on them.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
Because it's like sometimes like, well, do your character work. What if you read the script, you'll know. That's where it'll tell you. You know what I mean? So.
I remember I was in this play in grad school, The Island of Dr Moreau. Nobody's probably heard of it. It's the same guy.
Watch the Marlon Brando one.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. I was in that. I was actually Dr. Moreau. Okay. So I was Marlon Brando. We're on the same level of legend status. No, but that's what the play was. Yeah. I actually think the play was better than the movie. I actually watched a documentary on that movie. You should check it out. There's a whole documentary on how the Island of Dr. Moreau, that movie, was like a total...
He required that little guy to be with him in every scene. He like, did not wear pants most of the time.
Dude, if you check out the documentary, it's almost more entertaining than the movie. But I remember in grad school, I was the doctor, and so I'd do stuff where I'd be like in my room, and I'd be like walking like him and talking like him and doing all this stuff. That eventually I just was like, just stop, man. Yeah. Just stop. Like, you're not... I've just recognized that I'm going to be more successful at just bringing, like, me instead of just overthinking, like, I am Moreau. You know what I mean? It's like, just let it go, man. Yeah. Like, you're not that good.
Do you think, like, when you touched on, like, your mental health and stuff like that, do you think art has kind of helped you in, like, different ways? Like, do you think acting versus directing has kind of given you kind of a different glimpse into yourself?
Yeah, no, it's great, man. I think that with acting... it's like for me, it's not the opposite of being a director, but almost, because acting is like you do your work, then you show up and you just throw it all away and throw out overthinking completely. And the day of, my goal when I'm an actor is like, number one, you have to know your lines. Yeah. Like that is like your number one responsibility as an actor. I get tired of actors that show up to set, they don't know their lines. I'm never mean to that, but when I see that on other people's films, that's your number one job. Like know your lines, because you can't really act until you know your lines, in my opinion. But I found that with acting, there's just this freedom to not overthink and just kind of be. Which is what first drew me into acting and filmmaking when I did theater. It was like I just was like just having fun. Yeah. And so not overthinking when I'm saying something, just being in the moment, and that's what makes it believable. Directing is like every synapse in your brain is firing at the same time, especially as like an indie filmmaker. You know, it's like with this. I mean, with Who Needs You, it's like I don't say this like pretentiously, but I had to produce and direct and act and write. And when the day is set, like literally there were moments on set where I had to do the costumes. So I got like a clothing rack sitting here. So I show up, I got to talk to my DP. I'm like, here's the shot. Here's what I'm kind of seeing. I go to the clothing rack and I'm like, okay, I'm costume 6. Megan's costume 3. Megan, go get dressed. And then I'm rehearsing while they're doing this. And then then I got to jump in front of the camera. And like, they're like, hey, production design kind of looks weird. And then I'm moving. Like, it's just complete insanity. So directing is rewarding. It's not always like filmmaking is very rewarding, but I don't know if it's fun. It's fun in some ways, but it's like very fulfilling. That's why I keep doing it. Acting, I find to be much more carefree and fun. So it's a little more of like a release, whereas like filmmaking is like I have something to say. Here's something I like birthed. If that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. I think Donald Glover talked about that too. He's like, I love being a writer.
Oh yeah.
He's like, but the actors mean people are bringing free waters and stuff like that. He's like, it's just better.
Yeah, it's just better. Yeah, it's just fun.
I feel that it's like when you're the talent, quote unquote, you're like, why are people pampering me? This is weird.
Yeah,
it is weird, you know. Versus when you're behind the camera and you're taking care of everybody.
Yeah,
stuff like that. So and then I was curious with your writing process, and you wrote the film too. Right?
Yeah.
So like with you, was there kind of a fight with yourself, or were you like, oh, this is the easiest thing? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, there's a very, very long story I could get into that I won't. But
you can. Take your time
it's a long story, but I will say that I started writing the film early 2020, mainly because for a lot of different reasons, but I was very frustrated because I'm a videographer for a living, and I've tried to be very creative for my clients sometimes, and it was as well received as something that I just kind of just cranked out. And after a long time of, trying to like give my clients my best, I got burnt out because I was like, they're not valuing what I'm really bringing to them. There's a client now where I feel like very excited to bring like my heart to them because I feel like they value it. Yeah. It's very rare. But I feel like I've experienced before from different people, like when you give them your heart, they don't always like really, whatever. So the film was a part of like this frustration of like wanting to do something more meaningful, And there was some other factors at the time of my life. There was some heartache and some different things that I was going through that I was like, I want to do something like bigger than myself and like not just kind of keep making money, because the money has been amazing doing it, but money really, like, I'm not a millionaire, but like money really isn't everything. Yeah. It's just not. So the film came from a very personal place, a very deep place. And as I wrote the film, it's a comedy drama about a teen pregnancy, which, but just, I guess, for the audience. And so at some point during the movie, as I was writing, I was writing the short, and eventually it just became longer, and it was like 45 pages, which is like ridiculously long for a short film. And I wanted to shoot it, and I was all excited, and I was going to work with a certain organization and trying to shoot it, and then COVID happened, right? So it just shut down everything. So I was like, okay, well, I've got more time to write. So my goal was, I feel like sometimes filmmakers, like their goal is to make a feature. Yeah. I want to make my first feature film. Never my goal. In fact, I was like complete opposite. I was like, I can't do that, Yeah. But my goal was like to just keep writing, and like let's just see where the story goes. And eventually it just became like 130-something pages because that's what I feel like the story warranted, And so for me, I kept writing and just it eventually turned into a feature-length like film. Yeah. And I wrote it so I wrote it, but then I would have the help of a single mom who actually had 2 kids herself. Yeah. And she was able to inform a lot of the nuance of like being a single mom, being a teen mom, whatever. So her influence on the, she wouldn't write, but I'd have a version of the film and she would go through and edit it, which was so huge.
She's like consulting basically.
Yeah, like I'd write a version of it and then we'd sit down together and kind of go over that version and some of like the, parts where she kind of felt this way or that way or whatever it was. And it just helped me like hone in. So like if anybody watches the film, it deals with a lot of issues that like can be very heated or whatever, and it's like, to be honest, a lot of people feel like, well, what does some like white guy in his 30s have like a response? What authority does he have to talk about this? Yeah. But for 7 years, I've been doing creating content around the issue of pregnancy, unplanned pregnancies, single moms. I've been creating and telling stories of people in that position for 7 years. Yeah. So I don't know how many. There were some women that, there's one woman I remember, she was from Venezuela, she came to America, and the guy that got her pregnant said that if you don't get an abortion, I'm going to get you deported, And so it's like, what do you do? Yeah. I remember there's another story, a heroin addict. Another story of there's a woman, she had 5 girls, and one of them was older, but the other 4 lived with her, and she was in a physically abusive relationship, and overnight she took all her girls and moved in with her friend, and her and her 4 girls would all sleep in the same bed every night. And then she got pregnant with her 6th kid. And then when she found out it was a girl, because she already had 5 girls, she wanted to get rid of it, right? What do you do? Yeah. And I don't want to dive in all that issue. I'm just saying that I've had to tell some crazy stories, right? So having told those stories and sat down and met them and listened to them in person and edited their footage for hours, and then having the input of a single mom, really, I feel like, I don't want to say gave me authority, but it did give me confidence, like that I can speak about this issue in a way that I think is meaningful. So all that to say, I did write it, but it came with experience, and also it would not be what it is without that mom that helped me with it, and other people informing the script too. So yeah.
So I think that's awesome. You put something that's it is a tough issue to talk about, but I think giving it humanity, and empathy, and that's pretty awesome. I also feel like, as far as storytellers, sometimes like we don't experience the things. I think to Sparta in many ways too, talking about Thermopylae, but also in Sparta, there was 2 ways to get buried with honors, and one was childbirth, the other was war.
Wow, yeah. Yeah.
So there's something to that too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just to say one more thing about it too, it is not a political film. It takes no sides. It just tells a story, and I hope an honest story. And I think that to say something meaningful in film, you can't preach at people.
Yeah.
You know, the movie itself is not what's going to like. It's like I feel like it's the dialogue after a film that brings change. The film is just It's just a story, and I think that for me that was the goal, was to tell a story, and then you can talk about it later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do want to really be clear that like once you start talking about pregnancy, abortion, single motherhood, all this stuff, man, like I just can't talk about, like, I don't want to get into it at all. But if people ask me like, well, you know, how do you feel this or that, I'm just like, watch the movie.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Okay.
Because it's like, it's just a story, and the film really just says like, can we just think about the woman and the mom, you know? When you have a certain set of ideals that you place on someone else, what is that going to mean for their life? Mm-hmm. You know, and if you say you're going to actually be there for them, like, be there, you know, and how hard it's going to actually be. So all that to say, it's not a political film. We just are trying to tell an honest story, if that makes sense. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So Who Needs You, guys? If you get a chance, check it out. Really looking forward to seeing it, buddy. So, hey, that's been Tyler Hunt on our podcast at Room 420. Really thankful for having you. Anything else you want us to know, bud?
Oh, man. I don't know. I appreciate being on here.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it'll hit streaming, I think, in the fall sometime. So, yeah, I guess my Instagram is Tyler Steven Hunt.
Yeah.
Just
We'll
plug
plug you.
myself. Less than 1,000 people follow
Dude.
me.
Hey, those 1,000 people, man, they're
They're
dedicated.
dedicated. It's Tyler Steven Hunt, Steven with a PH,
Yeah.
just straight through. So,
Is
yeah.
there any other projects you're working on in the future?
Man, you know what? Right now I'm focusing on some clients that I have. There's a really cool nonprofit here in Denver that I'm doing work with, and they're kind of my focus right now.
Cool.
Trying to build up their brand and from more like a cinematic standpoint. So that's the big thing. But yeah,
Awesome.
in general, I appreciate you having me, man. This is fun.
Thank you for coming on, dude. Looking forward to having you in the future, bud.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Cool. All right, man.